Alright, so the last Dr. Squatch rankings video I made was in November of 2023 when there were only 59 bars. So here we are, more than 2 years later, and as of February 1st, 2026, there are now 118 bars in the Dr. Squatch catalog, exactly double the amount from the previous rankings. So because there have been so many bars added to the catalog, I decided to add 2 additional tiers to the tier groups to help differentiate what I think of the bars. Hate, dislike, generic, indifferent, underwhelming, okay/decent, like, and love. In addition to the 8 tier groups, I am also adding a family bars list where I will go over bars that share a similar scent. This will help give you a better idea which bars you may or may not like. Twins will be bars that smell nearly identical. Siblings will be bars that smell similar. Cousins will be bars that share a slightly similar scent. And then we will have the mother and father and baby bars, a baby bar being a byproduct of 2 other bars. It'll make more sense as we go along. And a couple quick side notes before we start. I will have a new #1 bar because I'm going to officially retire the OG bars that they reformulated. So unfortunately, my favorite bar of all time, Gold Moss Scrub, will no longer be included in my rankings, which means I will be instead ranking the inferior Gold Moss bar in its place. And I will also be excluding the OG Drunken Pumpkin and the OG Irish Cream and Whiskey as well, both which would have definitely been in my love tier. But instead, I'll be ranking the remakes. And in case anyone was wondering, no, I will not be including the Sydney Sweeney bar because there were only 5,000 bars made. They sold out in like 10 minutes, and it was just a gimmicky cash grab, never intended to be a bar in their permanent catalog. And it seems just to be another recycled free solo scrub bar anyway, with her bathwater mixed in. And speaking of Sydney Sweeney, I just launched a new movie review channel and reviewed her newest movie, The Housemaid. I'll leave a link in the pinned comment if anyone wants to check it out. I'm procrastinating, delaying the inevitable, because we all know what's about to go down. I swore I would never do this again, but destiny has brought me back. I must return to
the forbidden box.
And there are definitely some very unwelcome additions to Satan's soapbox. I think we're going to need a bigger box. But the #1 question is, are there any new contenders who can come close to knocking off the world heavyweight Dr. Squatch Stank champion Spartan Scrub? An odor so bad, it sends skunks running for cover. Homeless shelters rejected the donation of Spartan Scrub overstock that Squatch can't sell. Multiple court cases have been documented of wives divorcing their husbands after bringing this satanic stench into the home. Who can survive this curse? No more foreplay. It's time to start the rankings, and we must begin with... I don't know if I can do this. In 2021, I came in here and gave the smackdown to that little pissant Birchwood Breeze for the World Heavyweight Stank Championship. And in 4 years, there ain't been one single challenger that can step in this ring and match my rancidity. You want to go one-on-one with the gross one? Anyone? I didn't think so. Gary, give me my title of Dr. Squatch Stank Champion. Coming in at number 118, you already know, Spartan Scrub. Spartan Scrub said they were the World Heavyweight Stank Champ. Stone Cold said, hold my beer. And new Dr. Squatch World Heavyweight Stank Champion, Stone Cold Stunner! Oh, come on, Sparty. Don't be a poor loser. He's over here pouting in the corner now. This smells like effing cigarettes. It says that it smells like beer. It doesn't smell like beer. What kind of beer smells like cigarettes? Marlboro Heineken? This seriously smells like cigarette ashes and gasoline. I'm not even kidding. This was such a missed opportunity. They could have had a nice IPA scent with charcoal and leather or something like that, which could have been phenomenal. But instead they're like, nah, we're gonna make a bar that smells like cigarettes. I'm not kidding. I'm not exaggerating to be funny. I wish I was. This is seriously the worst scent in the entire Dr. Squatch catalog, and that says a lot. Oh, come on, Sparty. Of course, you're the #1 contender, so you'll get a rematch on the next rankings video. I mean, #2 out of 118 isn't bad. Come on, let's continue the video. Coming in at number 117. Straw Hat Brick. Come on, Sparty, I still hate you. This unholy creation is one of the foulest scents I've ever had the displeasure of sniffing. It smells acidic and smoky, like smoky urine. It smells like fabric that my cat peed on. And I'm not even joking. Coming in at number 116, Bricked Up. I hate this bar so much. It's so gross and disgusting. It smells like latex with a note of licorice. Get the new Dr. Squatch 3-bar cheap motel scent bundle. Cigarettes, pea-scented mattresses, and condoms. A hooker's dream come true. Alright, coming in at number 115, Spartan Scrub. Wait. Where'd Sparty go? Sparty, what did you do to Badger? Handheld Sparty's toxic fumes! 911, what's your emergency? Send help quick! My badger's dead! Your badger's dead? Yes! How did it die? Spartan Scrub! Spartan Scrub? Yeah! What exactly is a Spartan Scrub? It's a Dr. Squatch soap! How did a soap kill your badger? Have you smelled Spartan Scrub? Sir, calm down. Is your badger still breathing? No, he inhaled too much Spartan Scrub! Okay, sir. You need to administer mouth-to-mouth resuscitation. Ugh. Do you want to save his life or not? Okay. Come on. Don't you die on me, Badger. Don't you die on me. Sir, is he breathing? No, he just died again. Thanks for nothing. Wait! Get some Gold Moss Scrub stat! Thanks to OG Gold Moss Scrub for bringing Badger back to life. Number 115, Spartan Scrub. Don't get down on yourself, you still stink. You're always gonna be gross, and I'll never use you in the shower. You had a good run, it's just that your nasty smoky vinegar scent just isn't quite as atrocious as the sweaty brothel scent. Alright, coming in at number 114, Grit of the Genius. Oh, this bar just smells so rancid. It smells like seaweed and fish eggs or something. It's just gross, and I was tempted to even put it lower than Spartan Scrub. It is definitely an honorary member of the official Rancid Club to go right along with Number 113, Black Hole. This one is also rancid. This one smells like rotten produce, like rotten apricots. Both of these are in the rancid club, and Straw Hat Brick is the founding president. I think this may be the most rancid smelling bar I've ever smelled in my life. Which brings us to number 112, another new release, Vecna's Curse. This reeks so bad. It smells like smoky ashes or something. At least they're consistent with the character here, because it definitely smells like something from hell. Like the bowels of hell. Like after the devil took a dump or something. And this smells like his urine. Truly a match made in hell. Next up, number 111, Raptor Rush. Yeah. This is definitely a member of the Rancid Club. Remember I said this smells like a urinal cake? This does smell like urine, but there's also like a combined note of freshness. You know, kind of like before urinal cake is used, it has like a fresh scent. And then after the boys go to town on it, then it reeks, because now that fresh scent is contaminated with a urine scent, obviously. And that's what Raptor Rush smells like. It smells like a urine-soaked urinal cake. But Straw Hat Brick just smells like urine without the note of freshness. Raptor Rush and Straw Hat Brick, a truly piss-tacular duo. And coming in at 110, Suds of Darkness. This just really reeks. It smells like cheap perfume to me. And this will be the first family bar of the video I mentioned, because it smells very similar to Black Hole. I would say they are siblings. Not identical, but very similar. Although I would say Suds of Darkness is not nearly as offensive as Black Hole. They're better off just staying away from both these brothers. They're nothing but trouble. And they stink. Coming in at number 109, Dr. Squatch is really on a roll in 2025, Skeleton Suds. This one is hard to describe. It's kind of smoky. It smells kind of like a stale cologne. I'll open it up and show you what it looks like. I mean, it's not nearly as offensive as the prior bars I've went over, but it's pretty bad. But on a positive, the texture of the bar feels good. I just can't stand the scent. But at least it doesn't smell like this or this. And next up, to conclude the hate tier, number 108, Predator Purge. And I hate doing this because I love the Predator franchise. I did a review on my movie channel for Predator Badlands, if any of you want to check that out. And another reason I hate putting this in my hate tier is because it performs really well in the shower. This has one of the best lathers in the entire Dr. Squatch catalog. It's just, I just can't get past that smell. This reeks. It literally smells like dirt, like smoky dirt, and I'm not even kidding. And I hate ranking this one so low because it actually felt really good on my skin. I just didn't want my skin to smell like it afterwards. And in addition to the dirt scent, there's a very subtle note of cranberry or cherry or something. Just a very odd combination, but that smoky dirt scent is just too overpowering. Alright, so that wraps up the hate tier. Now it's time for... And kicking off the dislike tier, coming in strong at number 107, another 2025 release, Coastal Mist. This smells like mildew. And it looks like it too. It just has this very cheap and synthetic scent. It smells a bit like milk of magnesia to me. But worse, there's this note that reeks a bit like sour milk. I just can't stand the scent of this bar, and the only reason that it's not in my hate tier is because it's actually not very strong. You can definitely smell it, but it's not in your face like some of the other bars in my hate tier. But the scent itself is grotesque. And unfortunately, this bar does have a cousin that I'll talk about a little later in this tier. And what else is disappointing is that this is a bar that they actually put into the full-time lineup. If there was ever a release to be a limited edition, this would be it. It's like they took sour milk and then just doused it with a bunch of cheap fragrance and then sold it and hoped no one would notice that they're actually selling a bar of sour milk. All right, number 106, Birchwood Breeze. At this point, this bar is really old. I bought this very bar when Birchwood Breeze was first released back in, I can't even remember if it was 2020 or 2021, but this bar is like 5 years old at this point. Has very little scent. So this actually is not offensive at all because the scent has faded out so much. The one positive about this bar is the exfoliant, and the texture of this bar actually feels really nice. I will give Squatch credit because Birchwood Breeze is actually very good quality. The problem for me is that when I used it in the shower, the scent exploded and it just totally turned my stomach. It literally made me nauseous. But if you like stronger scents and you don't have a sensitive stomach, then you may actually really like it. And now that this scent has faded probably by like 80%, it actually doesn't smell bad at all. But don't get me a brand new bar. All right, number 105, Summer Citrus. This was supposed to replace the underwhelming Cedar Citrus bar, but this just went to the opposite extreme. At least Cedar Citrus smells natural. This just smells cheap and synthetic, and it's way too strong. Split the difference, please. Some have said they think this smells like Lemon Pledge, and I can see what they mean, but to me, it smells more like a generic orange soda. I was just very disappointed by this bar. And speaking of disappointing, coming in at number 104, Resistance Rinse. And this bar does have a sibling that I will get to later on. But this bar, unfortunately, just smells so cheap and artificial. Definitely not a natural scent. It smells so synthetic. I just really do not like this bar at all. Next up, we have Coastal Mist's cousin, number 103, Viserian's Freeze. I was so much looking forward to this bar, and I was utterly disappointed. This has that same nasty milky scent as Coastal Mist, just with added menthol. But I actually like this bar a little better than Coastal Mist. One thing I do like about the bar is how it looks. It looks really nice. It's just when Squatch advertised they were coming out with a menthol bar, I got my hopes up, and this one did not deliver. And it definitely does have like a very synthetic scent, but at least it doesn't smell like mildew like its cousin Coastal Mist. And keeping on the trend of disappointing bars, coming in at number 102, Root Beer Brick. I was hoping that this was going to have a really nice natural root beer scent, but nope. Instead, it smells like generic root beer candy. You know, like those cheap little root beer barrel candies you'll buy at the gas station. That's what this smells like. And surprisingly, this scent is really strong, and I had to keep it separate from my other Squatch bars because all of the other surrounding bars will smell like cheap root beer candy. I mean, it's not a terrible offensive scent or anything, it's just really disappointing. But a quick recommendation, if you do want a really good root beer bar, go to Dapper Yankee and order Root Beer Barrel. This bar is phenomenal. And I never thought that I would like a bar of soap that smells like root beer, but so if you're interested in trying a root beer bar, definitely try this one from Dapper Yankee. So much better than Dr. Squatch's. And a quick shout out to Jacob from New England Soap Reviews, because he actually sent me this bar because I needed it for the rankings and he had an extra one on hand. And he actually did a Dr. Squatch rankings video as well. So if you're into soap reviews, look up New England Soap Reviews on YouTube and check them out. So thanks, Jacob, for sending this out, even if the bar turned out to be a letdown. Alright, and closing out the dislike tier, coming in at number 101, Snowy Pine Tar. Wait, don't leave. Wait, don't riot, I'll explain. The reason this is on my dislike tier is not because this bar is bad at all. It's because the scent is so strong that it turns my stomach. The scent itself is really good. It's way too strong for a soap. It's way better for a candle. But this is very high quality, very well made, so credit to Squatch for that. And the texture feels really nice as well. And another thing I'll point out is that the scent is strong, but it doesn't smell artificial, cheap, and synthetic like so many of these other bars do. So if this is one of your favorite bars, I am not arguing with you. I am not saying that this is a bad bar at all. This actually is really good quality, which is why I hate putting it in my dislike tier. The only reason that it's in my dislike tier is because I really dislike physical stomach pain. But ironically, even though it is in my dislike tier, it is a bar I actually do recommend you try for yourself. Alright, so that concludes our dislike tier, and now we're on to... So in my previous rankings video, I just put all of these bars under my indifferent tier or my dislike tier. But I noticed that some of them just smelled very generic and similar, while others were just underwhelming. And some I simply just didn't care for at all, one way or another. So I added this generic tier and an underwhelming tier to give a more accurate assessment of what I think of these bars. So, kicking off the generic tier, coming in at number 100, Suds of the Sly. I said on my previous rankings video that this bar is just very forgettable, and it is. I haven't thought about this bar since. And that's the case with all of these bars in this generic tier, just a bunch of forgettable bars that don't stand out. This Suds of the Sly bar has a similar note as Spartan Scrub, but is less offensive. It has a bit of a smoky, woodsy scent. It's just a very basic, boring, mid-generic bar, which is why it's in this tier. Although I do kind of like that shade of green. Coming in at number 99, this is the Wash. This has a very cheap, generic, gross licorice scent. But not a nice licorice scent like Twizzlers, but more of a cheap gas station candy licorice. This actually should have went into my dislike tier, but I think this is why it didn't, because number 98, Symbiote Plunge. It has that same nasty, cheap, generic note of licorice combined with some very subtle note of orange citrus or something. It's hard to describe, but whatever it is, it ain't good. It's just gross. Here, I'll show it to you real quick. Looks like a skunk. Smells like it too. And then number 97, Ghost Grit, and it also has that same note of generic licorice. But this one has a note of freshness combined. This one's a little better than the previous two, but they all share that same similar generic licorice scent, which is ultimately why I placed all three of them in the same tier. Number 96, Thousand Swords Scrub. This one smells a bit like an icy cologne. Unfortunately, it's more like a generic icy cologne. It says that it's a medium grit bar, but it feels more like a light grit to me. And that seems to be a trend with Dr. Squatch. It seems to me they misgrade their grit levels. If something's advertised as heavy grit, it feels more like medium grit. Or if it says that it's medium grit, it feels light. But then there have been some bars that were advertised as light grit, but felt more medium grit. So I don't know what's going on with that. I don't know if some of the bars they produce don't get an adequate amount of grit like they're supposed to, or if they just don't know how to grade their grit levels accurately. But I'll speak more on that throughout the video. So this Thousand Sword Scrub bar has a cousin bar, which is number 95, King of the Bricks. This bar was one of the biggest disappointments they have ever released. I was expecting so much more from a Jurassic Park bar. Just a very cheap and artificial scent. And then they doubled down and decided to pass that same generic scent onto Thousand Sword Scrub. So what's better than one generic scent? Two! Way to represent Jurassic Park in Game of Thrones. And closing out the generic tier, number 94, Three Sword Surge. This bar isn't terrible, it just smells recycled. It has a bit of a smoky detergent scent, like a hybrid of Legendary Lather and Suds of the Sly. And it looks kind of like Suds of the Sly as well. I'm just glad it doesn't smell anything like its One Piece counterpart, Straw Hat Brick. Compared to that, this smells divine. So that concludes the generic tier, and I think this is where we transition away from the bad into the neutral. Then we'll transition into the decent, and then the good, and then the great. But now it's time for the next tier. So these are bars that I just don't really care about one way or another. Not necessarily bad, just ones that I'm neutral on. Number 93, Cowabunga Cleanse. Now I know a lot of people hate this bar, but I don't think the scent is actually bad. It just smells like oregano, like an Italian restaurant. The problem is that it's a terrible idea for a bar of soap. It really doesn't make sense. But the scent is very strong, one of the strongest in the entire Dr. Squatch catalog. And so I had to store in a Ziploc bag and stash it away separately from my other Squatch bars because that oregano scent would have spread to all the other bars. Go ahead and open it and smell it. Ooh. That scent got a lot stronger. Wow. Well, I can really detect that note of tomato paste now. Whereas before, I didn't really notice it. Now it smells like a pizza. But I'm also detecting a note of detergent. I didn't detect any note of detergent when I first got this bar. Storing it away in a Ziploc bag has really summoned its stankiness. Pizza and detergent is not a good combination. I gotta put this up before it turns my stomach. Since this scent altered from when I first stashed it away, this would definitely go somewhere in my hate tier. The scent was not originally bad, but now that this detergent note is combining with that strong oregano, it is absolutely disgusting. I gotta put this up. I guess I was mistaken when I said the bad was behind us. Whew. Number 92, Flamin' Hot Brick. Same thing as a Ninja Turtles bar. Very strong scent I had to place in a Ziploc bag and store away from the other Squatch bars. Now I'm afraid to open this up and see how it smells. Enter at your own risk. This smells totally different. This smells like beer hops. I'm not even kidding. Why does it smell like beer? Yeah, it totally smells like beer now, but it did not smell anything like beer when I first got it. It says that it's made from red cornmeal. I'm gonna go ahead and Google that. Does red cornmeal smell like beer? Yes, red cornmeal or any cornmeal can have a smell reminiscent of beer, particularly if it's wet, being cooked in a mash, or has gone rancid. There you go. This bar's obviously gone rancid. because it definitely smells like beer. Shut up! I can hear you all snickering at me. How did you not know cornmeal smells like beer? I just didn't. Sue me. And I better not hear any smart comments about it in my comment section or you're getting banned. I can poke fun at people all day on my channel, but no one's allowed to do it to me. So how do I feel about this bar now that the scent altered? Not good. I stand corrected. I am no longer indifferent to these two bars. I've already started the rankings video, so I'm not going to go back and rearrange my rankings, but Cowabunga Cleanse would go somewhere in my hate tier, and this Cheetos bar would go somewhere in my dislike tier. Now, if you'll excuse me, I need to stash these away and get them off my desk. All right, number 91. Lumberjack Lodge. This scent is very strong and has two family bars with a similar strong scent, so that's why I put them all together in this Ziploc bag. I'll get to its relatives soon, but for Lumberjack Lodge, this is a new bar they recently added to the full-time lineup. But the scent is a huge disappointment to me. But it actually does perform really well in the shower. It feels really nice on the skin and has good grit. So it gets an A for performance in the shower, but I'd give it a D for the scent. If it wasn't so good in the shower, it would be in my dislike tier. Number 90, Sea Star Shenanigans. I am torn on this one, because it actually does have a pretty decent scent. It has a nice guava scent. It smells kind of like a wine cooler to me. But the problem with this scent is that it smells way too synthetic and artificial and comes across like a really cheap bar. It definitely doesn't seem like a natural soap for men. It feels more like a soap for kids. And Squatch has a slew of bars that smell more like children's soap than men's. At this point, Squatch should just start a separate children's lineup and make bars for kids. I mean, does this look like a bar for men? Could you see Denzel Washington or Clint Eastwood using this? Number 89, Chalky Milk. And number 88, Hot Chalky. These are identical twin bars, both medium grit and made with cocoa nibs. Both of these bars are pretty straightforward. They both just smell like a chocolate candy bar. All right, we'll see what Chalky Milk looks like, and we'll see what Hot Chalky looks like. They do look slightly different. This is Chalky Milk, this is Hot Chalky, and as you can see, Hot Chalky looks a bit grittier. And I think Hot Chalky may have a slightly stronger scent as well. Other than that, they're pretty much identical. If you do want a bar that smells like chocolate, these are your bars. Just do not eat them. Number 87, Zen Cleanse. And number 86, Lather of the Loyal. These are the two relative bars of Lumberjack Lodge that share the same Ziploc bag. They all have a very similar buttery pastry scent. But the Zen Cleanse is a little different because it has a smoky, woodsy note added. So I would say Zen Cleanse is the cousin bar. But Lather of the Loyal and Lumberjack Lodge are more like siblings. Go ahead and open these up and show you how they look. This is the Lather of the Loyal bar, and this is the Lumberjack Lodge. So the Lather of the Loyal is a smoother bar, while the Lumberjack Lodge is a grittier bar. Yeah, they both smell very similar, but Lather of the Loyal has a sweeter scent, while Lumberjack Lodge has a smokier scent. I actually prefer the Lather of the Loyal scent. It's not a bad scent, it's just very odd for a soap. It's a really dominant butter scent, like a pastry or a butterscotch candy. But ironically, in spite of both being a very odd choice for a soap scent, they both perform really well in the shower. Lather of the Loyal is a little sweeter, while Lumberjack Lodge. And closing out the indifferent tier, number 85, Cold Brew Cleanse. This bar is really confusing because it's supposed to be a coffee bar, but it doesn't really have much of a coffee scent at all. It has a sweet scent. It smells more like coffee creamer to me than coffee. I think it smells kind of like cake batter. It's not bad, it just doesn't smell like coffee. It's a heavy grit bar, and as you can see, definitely one of the grittiest bars in the entire Dr. Squatch catalog. It uses coffee grounds as exfoliant, and you can really feel it in there. So technically it does have coffee beans in the ingredients, but it doesn't smell like it. So that's the end of the indifferent tier. Now on to... So this underwhelming tier is basically a collection of bars that are not necessarily bad, but bars that I had high hopes for but didn't deliver and turned out to be huge disappointments. And kicking off the underwhelming tier, number 84, Alpine Sage. When I first tried Dr. Squatch back in 2019, this bar was called Nautical Sage. And it was hyped up on their commercials as one of their best scents, so I was really looking forward to it. But then when I got the bar, I was utterly perplexed what all the hype was about because it hardly even had any scent. Then they changed it to Alpine Sage, and I thought it was going to be new and improved, but it still hardly has any scent. What was the point in changing it? It has a very faint scent that slightly resembles old man cologne or something, with maybe a very, very subtle note of pine, but so subtle that it's hardly noticeable. The scent is about as exciting as its appearance. Number 83, Mountain Meadow. This is another bar that Squatch recently added to their regular lineup, and I don't know why. It has a very light floral scent. There's nothing technically wrong with it. It's just a very dull scent and feels more like a women's soap than men's. It is pretty good in the shower. Good lather and feels nice on the skin, so it has that going for it. But the scent itself is just very lackluster and definitely doesn't come across like a soap for men. I just realized I think this bar has a cousin bar. I'll follow that up in a few minutes. Number 82, Adamantium Scrub. A Wolverine bar? You're getting my hopes up, only to be let down. It's not a bad scent. It's just underwhelming. I was expecting more, something exciting and unique. It has a subtle leather note, which isn't bad, but the problem is they didn't combine it with another note to make it stand out. It's a heavy grit bar and pretty good in the shower, so performance isn't the problem. The problem is that the scent isn't anything special and is a bit generic and is a massive letdown. And speaking of massive letdowns, number 81, Godzilla Grit, another major disappointment. What is this supposed to be? Another plain Jane scent. Why collaborate with all of these huge intellectual properties only to deliver a lackluster product? You can create an original bar and do that like you did with Mountain Meadow, but not Godzilla. This character deserved better. And you made the Godzilla bar pink? Am I a joke to you? This isn't a bad scent, but it smells a bit like a subtle perfume. It feels like another bar better suited for women than men. This scent would have been better for one of their jukebox bars, which is Dr. Squatch's women's brand. And I have no problem with Dr. Squatch creating a women's lineup. Just keep it separate from the men's. Number 80, Fight Scrub. Now, the pink on this bar makes sense because it's supposed to represent bubblegum and smells like it. It has a note of a bubblegum scent. Not a bad bar, but just another bar that comes across more like a bar for kids than adults. Alright, so let me preface this next one by saying this is probably the most disappointing bar that they've ever released. Not because it's the worst bar, but because of the level of excitement I had when they announced they were coming out with this kind of bar. I'm still recovering. Number 79, Nautical Nonsense. I was so hyped when they were coming out with the pineapple bar. I thought it was going to be one of my favorites, but there's just really nothing here. It's one of the lightest scents in their entire catalog. Remember those old Wendy's commercials? Where's the beef?
Where's the beef?
Well, Dr. Squatch, where's the pineapple? Because it ain't here. It looks like a pineapple, but don't smell like one. It's about as weak as Alpine Sage, just a tad sweeter. You know what I just realized? Remember I just said Alpine Sage used to be called Nautical Sage and I complained about how weak the scent was? Well, what have many of us been complaining about Dr. Squatch the last couple years? Recycling so many scents, right? I am thinking they may have actually recycled the old Nautical Sage and renamed it Nautical Nonsense and just added a very subtle note of pineapple to it, which you can hardly detect, by the way. What's the name? Nautical Nonsense. I think Squatch is trolling us. Number 78, Spidey Suds. Another major letdown. A Spider-Man bar and a blueberry bar? Sign me up. I had been wanting Squatch to come out with a pineapple bar and a blueberry bar, and somehow they managed to whiff on both. The bar isn't bad, but the scent is just far too subtle. You can slightly detect a light note of blueberry, but it leaves a lot to be desired. I think the bar looks decent, but overall, just another disappointing bar from another massive intellectual property. Number 77, Area 51. This scent is decent, it's just very light. It's not bad at all, there's just not much to it. I was expecting more from a bar called Area 51. Number 76, Freedom Fresh. This is actually a good scent. It's just really weak. I don't ever recall hearing anyone say they don't like the scent. What you hear everyone complaining about is how weak the scent is. This is a bar they should have reformulated and made the scent stronger, and it could be really good. Make a note, Squatch. Boost the bar on this scent, and I think it'd become a fan favorite. Number 75, Eucalyptus Greek Yogurt. This is a bar that they discontinued, so is no longer available. They replaced it with a new eucalyptus bar called Rainforest Rapids, which I will cover in a few minutes. I think Rainforest Rapids was a good addition to the catalog, but instead of discontinuing this, I think they should have transferred it to their women's lineup because I think women would love it. I actually like this bar for the quality, it's just that the scent is really weak. It's not bad, it's just hardly noticeable. But it was actually one of their best bars for your skin, so for that reason I wish they kept it around. Number 74, Cedar Citrus, another bar they discontinued and replaced with Summer Citrus, which was a huge downgrade. The problem with Cedar Citrus is just that the scent was really weak, but I thought it was good quality and felt like a natural soap. Whereas the new Summer Citrus bar is loud and synthetic and doesn't seem natural at all. I really wish Squatch had kept Cedar Citrus and just did a reformulation and made the scent a little stronger. But instead, they replaced it with a new citrus bar that smells like cheap perfume. Alright, number 73, in closing out the underwhelming tier, Scrub Smash. Okay, so this is what I was talking about a few minutes ago when I said that Dr. Squatch doesn't seem to grade their grit levels accurately. On my previous rankings video, I had Scrub Smash much lower because I said that when I used it in the shower, it pretty much had no grit, even though it's listed as a heavy grit bar. But then afterwards, I used it in the shower again, and this time it actually did have a lot of grit, and it was a lot better. And I have read other Squatch customers saying the same thing, that some of the medium or heavy grit bars don't have any grit when you first use them, but that the grit comes out in the second or third shower, which was the case for me with Scrub Smash. But Dr. Squatch needs to do something about this. If you advertise a bar as having grit, it shouldn't take multiple showers before the grit surfaces. So even though Scrub Smash performed in the shower a lot better than the first time I used it, it's in the underwhelming tier because the scent smells recycled. It has a synthetic detergent scent, which I just don't think matches the concept of what a Hulk bar should be. But the grit was really good the second time I used it in the shower. And I actually really like this shade of green, one of the prettiest bars in the Squatch catalog. I think this bar would be so much better if it had more of a natural scent opposed to an unappealing detergent scent. A scent that was recycled in a cousin of the next bar we're about to go over. But for now, that concludes the underwhelming tier, which takes us to... Alright, kicking off the okay/decent tier, number 72, Legendary Lather, which is the cousin of the Hulk bar that I was referring to on the previous entry. But I would say they're more distant cousins. They both have a detergent scent, but they're not identical. Legendary Lather has more of a grassy detergent scent. And this is what it looks like up close. I'm not a fan of either of these scents, but both of these bars do perform very well in the shower, but for different reasons. The Hulk bar is good because of its grit, whereas Legendary Lather is good for its rich lather. I'd say Legendary Lather has the second best lather in the entire Dr. Squatch catalog. Which one would I say is first? I'll get to that in a few minutes. And a quick FYI, when you use Legendary Lather in the shower, you have to grip the bar really tight because the lather makes this bar extremely slippery. Number 71, the One Ring Rinse. So this bar has 3 cousin bars that I think are all better than this one. We'll get to them in a few minutes, and then I'll talk a little more about this one when I compare them. Number 70, Diamond Scrub. Honestly, there's just not a whole lot to this bar. It's not a good bar, it's not a bad bar, it's just okay. It's like a very subtle, smoky detergent scent. It actually reminds me of that new car smell. But overall, it's just not a very memorable bar, but it's okay. Number 69, F-150 Tough Scrub. Now this is a very fresh scent. Unfortunately, it smells a bit like a generic fresh scent, like it came from Temu or something. But the reason it's not in my generic tier is because this isn't actually a bad bar. It's just too synthetic for my like and feels like it's actually imitating what a fresh bar should smell like. Number 68, Rainforest Rapids. This is the bar that replaced Eucalyptus Greek Yogurt. And it's definitely a stronger scent, but honestly, it's not anything to brag about. It's okay. It's like a fresh woodsy scent. It kind of reminds me a bit of Irish Spring, but like the previous bar I just went over, it's a bit more synthetic than I like. It's not bad, it's just okay, which is why it's in this tier. Number 67, Sarge Soap. And number 66, Free Solo Scrub. And number 65, Sierra Storm. These are triplet bars. They all smell nearly identical. Free Solo Scrub here came out first. It actually just smells like a pine forest. It actually smells a lot like Squatch's Pine Cologne Woodland Pine. Then Sarge Soap came out, and it smells nearly identical, except I would say this one is a tad louder and smells a bit more synthetic, whereas Free Solo Scrub smells a bit more natural to me. So those two bars were limited edition. Then Squatch came out with Sierra Storm and added it to the full-time lineup. And it smells nearly identical to the other two, except this one seems slightly toned down, and like it may have a very subtle note of smokiness added to it. I actually prefer this one because it's a little softer than the other two. And a quick shout out to Little Mac JTV, who actually sent me this bar of Sierra Storm to help me compile my rankings. So I appreciate him helping me out. He also does soap reviews on his channel and recently made a Squatch rankings video himself, but he only ranked the full-time bars, which are like 21 if I'm not mistaken. But if you like soap reviews, look him up on YouTube and consider subscribing. Number 64, another bar from the Harry Potter collection, You Know Who. I actually don't know who because I've never watched the Harry Potter movie. This scent is a bit plain. I wouldn't say that it's bad, but I wouldn't really say it's good either. Show you what it looks like up close. It has a bit of a smoky detergent scent with like a really subtle note of pine. But it's a bit generic to me. But the reason it's not in my generic tier is because I like this bar better than most of those in my generic tier. But I don't like it quite enough to place it in a higher tier. It belongs here in the okay tier because it's just okay. Number 63, the new Drunken Pumpkin. And to clarify, this is not the same scent as the OG Drunken Pumpkin. Now, they did release a bar that smells nearly identical to this, and we'll get to that one later. But this Drunken Pumpkin has a totally different scent and is not nearly as good as the OG Drunken Pumpkin. Now, this one does actually have more of an authentic pumpkin scent, as the OG Drunken Pumpkin was actually very light on the pumpkin scent and had a stronger cologne scent, which I think was to us guys what catnip is to cats. So yeah, we'll call it man-nip. That's what OG Drunken Pumpkin was to us. When they stopped selling it, we were out here in these streets trying to find a bar. Hey man, you know where I can get some of that Drunken Pumpkin, man? Oh yeah, I got what you're looking for. Here you go. Oh yeah. What the is this? There's this subtle note that smells like powder to me. This smells kind of like a powdery pumpkin with like a hint of citrus. Overall, this was a huge disappointment. Not a bad bar, but just not nearly as good as the OG. Number 62, and another Harry Potter bar, The Chosen One. Now, I do know that this is the Harry Potter character. Hope you guys are proud of me. Okay, as I was just revisiting this bar, I realized this actually has a cousin bar. And it may surprise you, but it smells a bit like Bricked Up. But this one smells much better. First off, it's not as loud as Bricked Up. It has a nice musky cologne scent with a note of powder and a hint of citrus, actually similar to the Drunken Pumpkin bar I just went over. This has a powdery orange citrus note underneath a pumpkin detergent scent, and this has that same powdery orange citrus note underneath a musky cologne scent. This one is hard to gauge because I want to put it in my like tier, but it's just a tad too synthetic for me, which downgrades it to just my okay tier. Number 61, Bronco Brick. I actually like this one much more than I expected. It has a nice leather scent with a very subtle smoky note, but it also has a detergent note which I don't care for. So that slides it down a few notches and ultimately lands in the upper half of my okay tier. Number 60, Count Sudzilla. This has a synthetic scent, but it's not too strong. I actually like it pretty well. It has a bit of a sweet scent, like some kind of fruit or something. Maybe a note of cherry or possibly dragon fruit like they use in Resistance Rinse. But one thing I don't like about it is that the red dye in this bar runs in the shower. I guess that was done by design to represent blood. But ultimately, not something I want to see running down my leg in the shower, so that drops it down in my rankings. And we have actually now reached the halfway mark of the video. We are only halfway through. At this point was the end of my previous rankings video I made in 2023, ranking 59 bars. I just finished ranking 59 bars on this video, and we'll rank the next 59 bars on the next video.